Hi, my name is Rex Richardson. I have a musically diverse life. I have to juggle a number of things in my career as a performer and as a teacher. I've become very active in recent years as a soloist, and I've also been playing with Yamaha group Rhythm and Brass for about 12 years now. And I've also been the professor at Virginia Commonwealth University, professor of trumpet and jazz trumpet for the last 5.5 years now. And recently my travels have taken me around the world quite a bit, primarily as a soloist in jazz and classical contexts. Every day is fairly unique. I do have a few things that I tend to specialize in. I tend to play a lot of new music as a classical soloist, and I tend to specialize in more of the kind of post-bop or free-bop kind of playing as a jazz player. But I'm always looking for new challenges. I'm really excited that these days a lot of composers seem to be writing pieces for me, some of which I can't play when I get and I learn new things through figuring out how to play these pieces. But for example, in the last couple years, I did the premiere of Dana Wilson's Leader Concerto with the Xiamen Philharmonic in China, and I also played just a couple months ago with the Sydney All-Stars Big Band, and there was a concerto that a good friend of mine, Doug Richardson, has composed for me, which is something I'm really excited about. We've done the Australian and U.S. premieres so far, which is a concerto for trumpet and jazz orchestra, and he calls it as Intercontinental Concerto, and so he's got for all the populated continents, he's got 6 movements, and it's a wonderful, challenging, massive work. I've composed my own concerto for jazz trumpet and brass band, which is kind of a different, twisted sort of thing, and it's been real fun for me to play that in London and in Australia and in the States. And lately I've been involved a lot as a soloist with brass bands, playing Alan Bazzudi's Rising Sun Concerto. And so whether it be a brass band or a big band or an orchestra, these different settings are presenting themselves, or a solo recital like I had to do a few days ago in Athens. And it's all wonderful. It's just a great challenge and a chance to grow as a musician. My average day is a little bit hard to describe, actually, because each day is so different. It could be a day where I get up at about 7:30 in the morning, have some breakfast, throw in some coffee, try to deal with some email chaos. The box is always a little too full, probably like most of us. And then I start warming up, try to get the chops working, try to get everything together for whatever sort of playing I have to do for the day. If I'm at home, then that means I'm headed to school to do some lessons. Typically, it doesn't matter which day of the week. it is I'm headed to school to do some lessons, because due to my travels, I always have to do makeup lessons. Another day might be a day where I have to get up first thing in the morning and roll out of bed, take a shower, get dressed, and head straight to the airport. And I might be headed across the country, or I might be headed across the world to Australia or something. And so there's a good deal of chaos. And for myself, being not the most naturally organized person in the world, it takes a lot of pre-planning and being very careful to avoid having any sort of disasters come down upon my head. The best thing about being a college trumpet professor is just the inspiration I draw from my students. It's always, every day is something of an adventure. A student comes in with, they've had some kind of an epiphany, or they've got some kind of a problem, and every lesson is an opportunity for me. And I don't view things at all like I'm the authority and they're just going to learn from me. It's definitely a two-way street, and I think that's sort of it sort of determines the rapport I have with the students too. I'm kind of more like a big brother to them than some sort of a real authority figure, and we're both kind of on the same journey. I've just been doing it a little bit longer, so hopefully they learn something from me, and I definitely learn something from them every day. I think I'd like my students at VCU to see me as a particular type of role model for them. I just treat them as younger musicians, and there's a certain degree of respect that goes with that, a two-way street with respect, and also a degree of responsibility. I expect them to act like professionals in all settings, but also we have a very, very loose, relaxed rapport when it comes to just about everything except the music. So I want them to hopefully be inspired by that. I always try to perform as much as I can at VCU, because the things that I'm getting to do internationally and getting to play with great players and visit different parts of the world, I want to be able to bring that home and share that with my students. And like I said, it's a two-way street in terms of respect and in terms of learning. But I definitely want them to feel like I have a good deal of respect for them, that I treat them as young professionals rather than as people who are not worthy of that kind of respect. Being an internationally traveling musician in 2007 is quite a challenge. Dealing with airports, dealing with logistics, dealing with your instruments and making sure no one messes with them is always tough. It's always scary for me because I usually travel with a soft case. Typically I travel with 4 horns, because most of the time on tour I'm doing something that's jazz and something that's classical, so I often have my C trumpet, I've got a piccolo trumpet, I've got my flugelhorn and my B flat, and so I've got a hard case, which I often have to check, unfortunately, because I also have a computer in a soft case, and this can be very nerve-wracking. You take the horn off the belt sometimes, and you pull the horns out. It's like, you take the case off the belt rather, and sometimes there's a bad surprise in there. Also, just dealing with airports. I mean, 2 years ago on my way to Shanghai, I got stranded at O'Hare for 30 hours straight. It was a combination of weather and mechanical problems, and finally a passenger mutiny, basically, once we had been stuck on the tarmac for 8 hours straight without moving. That caused this to happen. And, at times like that, I was wishing maybe I was a plumber or something, anything but the traveling musician. So it gets crazy sometimes. Yes, it's kind of funny. The Richmond Airport. I think the TSA people there, the security folks, recognize me when they see me coming with my trumpet cases. I fly out of Dulles, is quite a bit as well, out of Washington, but Richmond's small enough that we're almost on the first name basis. So it's kind of funny. My passport basically looks like a Where's Waldo book at this point. When I came through U.S. Customs on, I guess it was just this past Sunday, coming back from Greece, the agent was struggling to find a place to stamp, and he kind of gave me a hard time about it. I said, okay, I guess it's time to order some new pages, but it's only a couple years old, so yeah, it's getting pretty thick in the passport. To narrow down a place to say it's my favorite is really tough, because really just about every place I go has something really fascinating to offer, and the people are always fascinating. I'd say one of my favorite places, though, in recent years has been Melbourne, Australia. I've played the International Festival of Brass there in 2005, 2006, and just had an incredible time. Great musicians to play with, great musicians to hear, and great people to work with. So Melbourne maybe is at the top of the list right now. One of the most challenging places I've ever been was also one of the most fascinating places, and that would be Saudi Arabia. Strangely enough, Rhythm and Brass toured Saudi Arabia 3 times in the late 90s. And we were performing for American expats and for Europeans, and it's a very interesting scene there, because public performances are not really condoned there in Saudi Arabia. But we performed at the American consulate, and we performed at the Italian Cultural Center, these types of places, and so it was very challenging. It was very strange, but it was also a really amazing experience. So challenging, but fascinating as well to be exposed to this country, which is such a completely different culture from ours. The last few years, I've been to Greece, really probably close to a dozen times, I would say, since 2002, 2003, and it's funny how it works, because it all starts with one person trying to make something happen. A great composer and saxophonist named Thanasi Zervas. We were at Northwestern together, and I barely remembered him, actually. He was doing his PhD in composition, and I was a freshman trumpet studies major. And but he's been trying to bring people over and to make things happen, bring Americans over to do performances. He got in touch with me and brought me over to be a soloist with the Athens Jazz Orchestra, which he was directing. And from there, things have just, spread. You get, it's all word of mouth. Someone tells you about a jazz club you should check out, and because of that, before you know it, I'm making a recording there at this place called the Guru Bar in Athens with these wonderful Greek musicians, and things continue from there. I did a recital on Saturday night. I was invited by the Center for Music Composition and Performance to present a recital, and they commissioned 6 composers to write new works for me to present in this recital, and it was a really great honor for me. But it all starts one step at a time, for people kind of spreading the word, and individuals who really want to try to make some things happen. So for that, I'm grateful. Well, playing